Now, what is going on, everyone? Today we're going to take a look at this package here called Supertest, which allows you to write integration tests for your Express.js server. And in order to speed things up a little bit, I created this little dummy application. So it is a simple Express web server that plugs in like a JSON parsing middleware, and that has exactly one endpoint. So I didn't put this inside of a controller directory and I also didn't add like proper error handling and request body validation, simply because I just want to show you how this Supertest package works. So here we're just going to pretend that, okay, you can register somehow, and if you don't pass your first name, I will return you a bad request. Otherwise, I'm going to return you 201. How do we actually test all of this? Well, if we go to the documentation here, we first need to install this package. So I will copy this, I will paste it in here, and I'm going to wait until it has installed. And another thing we need is we need something that actually scans our code base and actually runs the test. And one of the most popular tools here is Jest. So Jest is like officially maintained or has been created by Facebook. It's a very good tool, and yeah, that's what we will use. So we need to install this as well. So let's go to the documentation, and here you can see, okay, we just have to say npm install safe dev jest. So I will just copy this as well. We'll go here and paste this as well, and now we actually have everything we need. Good. So if we go to this library and we scroll down to the example section, then you immediately see how it works. So you import this package and you give this request method here, you give it your Express application, right? So you create the Express with const app equals Express, and then you pass this application to this function, and then this application will actually make a GET request, POST request, or whatever you want it to make. Okay, so that is pretty straightforward. We just have a little issue here, and that's actually quite common. So here you can see that we have everything in this index.js file for our server setup, and obviously that doesn't really work. So what we now need to do is we need to take this and we need to create another file, and I'm just going to call this app.js. I will paste this, and now I will export the application. And the reason I'm doing that is because later in my test, I will just import this app.js file because it exports this Express application. And the good thing here is that we can delete all of this, and we can say require app, and that's it. It's even better now because our index.js file is now simpler. Okay. So I think we can now go ahead and write our first test. So with Jest, or Jest looks for a particular naming for your tests, and it specifically looks for folders called __test __. And this is what we will create inside of this routes directory, and inside of here I will create index.test.js. Okay, perfect. So now Jest will be able to find this test file here. And one thing we haven't done, we actually need to make another script, right? So obviously we need to say, okay, if I run npm test, then it should execute Jest. And this is the nice thing about Jest, you don't need any arguments or any configuration. You just say Jest and it's going to figure everything out by itself. Cool. And what do we need? Well, we need to import application, or the Express server, and we also need to import this request method from this Supertest, right? So let's copy this, let's go back over here and let's paste this, and that's it. Cool, so let's write our first test. I think the simplest way would be to get started with the happy case, and what I typically do is I group my tests with describe blocks. Don't overdo it though. I mean, you can nest describe blocks. Yeah, I typically tend to use like 1 level or maximum 2 levels. The nice thing is, you just know, okay, these tests test this particular functionality. Okay, so I will create like this describe block, and let's see what we can do. So I will just say it returns status code 201 if first name is passed. All right, that's what we could do. So this is our first test, right? If first name is passed, then we expect the status code 201. Okay, so very good. Gonna take this. And now we can actually make the request. And in here we can actually use async and await, which is pretty cool. So I will make this method async. And now I'll just make a request. So I will say const response equals await. And now we use this, now we're actually using this request method. So if you recall here, this is exactly how it works. So you say request app, and then you say the HTTP verb you want, and then you can add like your payload. Okay, so I will say, okay, I want to make a request, and I want this thing to be a post request to /register. And I actually want to send the following thing. I don't know why it did that. I actually want to send the following thing. I want to send first name equals Jan. Okay, that's it. So now we are awaiting the response, and what we can now do is we can say, okay, we expect that the status code of this is equal to 201. Good. So this is like our first test. That should actually work, right? So let's try this out. Let's run npm test. And here we go. So as you can see, it picked up like this index.test.js file, and apparently this works. So that's pretty good. I can also show this to you in like with a real server, so to say. So let's just run it by ourselves, and let's use Postman. So if I make this request, then it returns 201, and if it's not there, or if something else is there, then you get a bad request, right? So just for demonstration purposes. Cool. So let's go back again and let's cancel this. And another thing we could do is we could make like the error case, right? What happens if I don't pass first name? Then I should actually expect a different status code, and I should get a specific error message. Now, obviously, in real life, you should not return a plain string as an error message. You should return an object with more details and so on. But for the purposes of this tutorial, it's fine. We'll just say returns bad request if first name is missing. And it's the same thing. And I will just say, okay, I will send like an empty object. And now I expect to get 400. And I also expect the body. So you can see here we have like body to equal. And what should it equal? This one, this guy here, right? We need to pass first name. Okay, let's go here. Let's paste this. Yeah. Okay, that should work. Yeah. So now we have like one test for the happy case and one test for the bad request case. Now in reality, you would obviously have many more tests, but I would just say let's run this. So let's execute it, and technically it should now find or execute these two tests, and you can see, okay, one test suite, and it ran two tests and all of them were green. And you can also see it's nicely grouped here. So it says, okay, I ran all tests for register and both tests were successful. Yeah, so that's it pretty much how you use this tool. Basically, you can check for other things as well. You can check for headers, you can check for cookies and all of that. But that's more like details. So you can just go through this documentation here and you can see, okay, I can set custom headers. You can also assert that you get certain response headers. But I think this is the bare minimum you need to get started with tests. So when you set up tests, start with something simple. Just make like one really silly or dumb test, and then you get in the habit of testing, and then your test suite will improve over time. Cool. So that's it pretty much for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you have any question, just write me a comment, or just reach out to me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @productioncoder. So thank you so much again, and I'll see you next video. Bye bye.